Hi, Michelle.
Hello, it's so nice to see so many faces today. What a wonderful pleasure. I'm so sad we're not together, but to one extent this might even be better because we're all together in spirit and we're cooking together and we're going to remember Noreen, and it's going to be a wonderful way for you to take a really quick trip to Bethlehem and meet the most famous chef. And I think we just have enough of us on screen that we're going to get started because we do have a full agenda, whether you're cooking or whether you're just watching, and we will be sending you the recipe if you want to cook later. So I'll start in the very traditional Palestinian way by saying ahlan wa sahlan, and that means welcome. And anywhere you go in Bethlehem, you'll always be greeted with the warmest of welcome. And at our hospital, Holy Family Hospital of Bethlehem, every single mother and baby is greeted ahlan wa sahlan, and the fathers too. So ahlan wa sahlan to all of you. Thank you so much for coming. It means the world to all of us. And I just want to open with a prayer because we are all here together, really thanks to the Blessed Mother who takes such good care of our hospital and where she gave birth to her son, and she continues to take good care of our hospital and all of us. And so Anna is going to put an image on the screen, and you're going to see the image. And this is the image of that you probably know of Our Lady of Palermo. This is the Blessed Mother, and it appeared as part of a larger icon with baby Jesus in her arms. And the research that I did is that she was originally called the Madonna of Bethlehem. And so I thought it was the most fitting way for us to open with our prayers today. And let us pray for peace, the end of the pandemic, and wellness for all of us, our family members, and everyone around the world, especially in Bethlehem. Afflictus tus spes unica rebus. In Latin, that means, in all our afflictions, you are indeed our hope. Our Lady of Palermo, also known as Our Lady of All Mercies, the Madonna of Bethlehem, we believe that you are our hope in this affliction, this pandemic of coronavirus. We pray that you intercede for us to end this pandemic throughout the world and to restore our pilgrimages to the Holy Land. We ask for your intercession to protect and to sustain our work in Bethlehem at Holy Family Hospital. Our Lady of Palermo, pray
Pray
for
for
us.
us.
For us.
In
Pray for-
all our afflictions, you are indeed our hope. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Now, I know
Amen.
that some of you know me, but my name is Michelle Bowe, and I serve as the president of Holy Family Hospital Foundation. And I'm just delighted that each and every one of you here today have taken the time and generosity to respond so generously to the cry of the poor from Bethlehem. And I have a very special welcome for our members of the St. Anne's Committee. And I would just love for you to raise your hands if you're a member of the St. Anne's Committee. We're blessed also to welcome a number of board members and or their spouses. So I would like for you to raise your hands if you're a board member or a spouse. And I know we have some friends from Bethlehem online too. So if you could raise your hand if you are from Bethlehem, ahlan wa sahlan especially. And I'd like you to, I also can't help but mention, I see Melissa Zell and Michael Falcone, and I especially welcome you. And you're going to hear the most beautiful tribute ever to Noreen, who so loved the mothers and babies of Bethlehem. But I'm going to save that for Catherine because Catherine is a beautiful wordsmith. So during this Zoom, please scroll through the screens, look and see who your friends are. Chef Fadi is going to ask us to show us our pots, and so move your computer over so you can see the pot. We have a chat feature. You just click on that button and you can send a message to all, or click through and send it to one person. During the demonstrations, I ask that you can mute so we can hear. And if you have a question, somebody else might even have the same question, so don't be shy, just put it in the chat.
Great.
And I'm going to turn it over to Catherine Abel, who has been a very dear friend to the mothers and babies of Bethlehem and a wonderful supporter since the earliest of days. And when Catherine finishes, we're going to introduce to you Chef Fadi. So Catherine, the floor is yours, and I think Anna's going to make Catherine's picture a little bigger, and we're going to have a beautiful tribute to Noreen Falcone.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you for all that you do for the hospital. We are all inspired by your commitment and your dedication to this work. We would like right now to share with you some photos and some thoughts about someone very special. Anna's going to put up some pictures for us. It is our tradition at this May event to honor a woman of faith, accomplishment, grace, and generosity. A woman whose compassion has changed many lives, including the lives of poor mothers and babies at Holy Family Hospital in Bethlehem. Noreen Falcone more than fits this description. It is our honor and our sadness today to remember our dear friend Noreen with our Star of Bethlehem award. Our honor because Noreen, by her life, set an example of love and kindness for us all. Our sadness because we lost our dear friend all too suddenly last February. Noreen was a woman of great generosity, and many on Zoom today can tell stories of how deeply she affected their lives. Noreen was a woman of great achievement. To name just two, she was the first Dame of Malta in the Syracuse, New York region, one of the visionaries who brought the order to the region and mobilized others to join in the order's good works to raise up the poor and the sick in need. She went on to become the first woman in the world to be elected president of a national association of the Order of Malta. And for her work nationally and internationally, she was awarded the Grand Cross, the highest award the Order of Malta can bestow. Noreen was a leader and a trailblazer, and everything she did with grace, humility, and a wise sense of humor. Noreen was a star, specifically a Star of Bethlehem. First and foremost, Noreen was a woman whose Catholic faith and the model of our Blessed Mother informed everything she did. No one excelled at mothering like Noreen. And no one was more willing to roll up her sleeves and do the hard hands-on work necessary to help someone in need. Noreen had a deep devotion to her own family of 4 children and 13 grandchildren, of whom she was extremely proud. But Noreen loved every child she ever met. On her many pilgrimages to Lourdes, it was always Noreen who lifted the crying child to her lap, scoured the town for the doll dressed as Saint Bernadette, ate ice cream with the disabled child so mom and dad could have some time to themselves. Noreen made them all feel loved, not only in Lourdes, but afterwards, visiting their homes in far-off cities, sending little notes and gifts, and sometimes being there to console the parents when God took the child to himself. Noreen's gift for mothering and her love for children were evident in her involvement with Holy Family Hospital. I think the idea of a hospital serving poor mothers and babies so near where Mary gave birth to Jesus captivated Noreen. Noreen and her husband, Mike, were founding board members of the Holy Family Hospital Foundation. Their wise counsel guided the foundation through its early years. In the year 2000, Noreen and Mike visited the hospital. Noreen fell in love with the tiny babies put into her arms. she was struck by the selfless work the staff does with poor mothers so much in need. For 20 years, Noreen and Mike supported the hospital most generously and thoughtfully, opening their home, their treasure chest, and their hearts whenever they were asked. So today, we express our gratitude for our friend Noreen. We extend our deepest sympathy to Mike and his daughters, Melissa and Michelle, who are on this Zoom today, and to all of Noreen's beloved family, friends, and associates. We share your loss and your sorrow. We know that Noreen's star will never dim. As the saying goes, those we hold most dear never really leave us. They live on in the kindnesses they showed, the comfort they shared, and the love they brought into our lives. It is our privilege today to bestow the Star of Bethlehem Award posthumously on Noreen Falcone, who gave new meaning to the star concept and whose memory will always live in our hearts. So let us all raise our cups to Noreen for a moment. She so loved the babies of Bethlehem, and she so loved all of you and all of us. So here is to Noreen, who we will always remember. And now I just turn this back over to Michelle to take us to the next part of our program, Cooking with Chef Fadi.
Thank you, Catherine. You have such a beautiful way with words. It just touches my heart and just brought Noreen so close. I felt like she was just here with me in my kitchen. But now it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce you to Chef Fadi Kattan, world-renowned Palestinian chef and foremost authority on Palestinian cuisine, a restaurateur and an hotelier. His restaurant in Bethlehem, Fauda, is the very best in Palestine. And let me tell you, I've been to many restaurants in Palestine and none even come close. Chef Fadi trained at the knees of his tetas, and teta is the loving Arabic word for grandmother. And then he trained in Paris at the Institut Vatel. Fadi makes the best of the season, and he knows the best stalls at the best markets. He knows how to forage for local products in season, and he's so concerned about the terroir, where the food comes from. Fadi is a chef's chef. He has a podcast, he has a web show, and they kept me such great company during quarantine to listen to him while I was ironing sheets and doing things I wasn't normally used to doing, and just made my time in quarantine so much better. Chef Fadi comes from a distinguished family in Bethlehem, a very talented entrepreneur and extremely creative people. They are a very old Bethlehemi family. Chef Fadi has chosen to make his mark on the world by inviting you to Palestine through a traditional and favorite dish for many, and it's called maqlube, and it means flipped or upside down because you take the finished product and you flip it. You probably saw it on one of the notes that had been sent out to you. But Chef Fadi, I am so grateful to you for you to Zoom in to us, to take your time. I know it's late at night and you are so generous to come and teach us how to cook and tell us about life in Bethlehem today and life in Bethlehem when you were younger. And I just can't wait until we can all go to Bethlehem and visit the hospital, pray at the Church of Nativity, and end our evening with the best food cooked by Chef Fadi at his restaurant Fauda. So I hope that that can happen soon with pilgrimages restored. And all I can say is let the cooking begin. Any questions, put them in the chat and we will answer them as we go along. And Chef Fadi, thank you so much. And we're going to put you on the big screen and we are going to go ahead with our matlube.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm honored to be among all of you tonight, and you're extremely flattering in what you were saying. I would invite you not to believe what Michelle said. Come and try the food and then judge by yourself. Uh, this means a lot. I think this is the most emotional cooking experience I'm doing because the hospital means a lot. One of the first directors of the hospital was my late grandfather, Dr. Michel Ledoux. And when Michelle suggested tonight, and she was extremely diplomatic about saying it's late, it's eight in the evening now, and I said, look, if it's 3 in the morning, I'd do it because what you have all been doing by supporting the hospital is something that is vital to the city. We'll start cooking in a few minutes, but before that, I think Michelle's been talking about the situation with the pandemic here and the work the hospital's been doing. Bethlehem's economy relies 90% on tourism. And since the 5th of March of last year, tourism has vanished overnight. Whether it's small, large hotels, restaurants, travel operators, but also artisans and all the other businesses that actually supplied merchandising and produce to be the core of tourism have stopped. We are in a place where we have no state support. So when the tourism industry elsewhere stopped, there were emergency plans, furlough schemes. There was quite a few things that were put in place, while in Palestine, people were left to fend for themselves. Our healthcare system, our governmental healthcare system is what it is, and it's not fabulous. But the dedication of the people at the Holy Family, the teams you have, the long history of that hospital really makes a difference in every Bethlehemite's life. So in the name of Bethlehemites, if I may allow myself, I do thank all of you for your positioning in support of that great work that needs to go on, and maybe more in those days of difficulty. Now let's talk about food a bit. We're doing matluba. Matluba is one of the traditional Palestinian dishes. Our cuisine is very much linked to season. Right now, it's the season with aubergines available, so eggplants, and that's why we're doing an eggplant matluba, but it can be adapted to whatever you have in season. The two main traditional ones are eggplants or cauliflower, but then people use carrots, potatoes, some of them are done with green beans. And that's one of the things that is extremely important for me, is for us to be able to source produce that are in season, that are local, and that are fresh. In my version, we've offered you 3 different versions or choices for the broth. So you can do a lamb matluba, you can do a chicken matluba, or you can do a vegetarian matluba. In my version, we're doing lamb, and the reason we're doing lamb is in the different races of lamb, the Awasi race, which is a Palestinian local race, I believe is one of the best lamb meats in the world. The reason is quite simple. A lot of people don't like lamb elsewhere because there's a very strong taste. And if you don't like fowl in general, that taste reminds you a bit of it. The local lamb has quite an interesting particularity, is that it stores its fat in the back separately from the rest of the meat. And in Arabic, we call it liya. It's this pouch of fat that's in the back of the lamb, so that the meat is quite lean. What I suggest is for us to start with the broth because it does need 30, 35 minutes. So for the ones cooking, what you need to have is Spices, your spices are basically cinnamon sticks and floral leaves. You need the meat or the chicken or the, if not, the parsley here and some onions. And then olive oil. I do hope you have Palestinian olive oil, because Michelle had me taste the olive oil done by the foundation this year. It's fantastic. But if not, any good olive oil would make do. Here we need to put a bit of olive oil in the pan, put the onions, roast them a bit, just for a minute, then put the meat and the spices, brown them, and then we'll add the water. So I'm just telling you this because I'll be on the stove. So if you're cooking, please start with that. And in the recipe, I do say 4 tablespoons of olive oil, but in Palestine, we actually say, you know, as generous as you want. So if you have more olive oil, just chuck it in. It'll give the meat that taste of butter. For the onions, we've asked for people to have them in slivers beforehand. If you haven't done that, it's fine. Just cut the onion in 4, because at the end we're going to drain all of that broth and discard the onions. For the ones cooking, you should have in the pot now, olive oil, onion, the spices, and we're going to right now brown it for a couple of minutes. You should be starting to get the smell now of the onions and the spices. We'll add the parsley with the water. In the meantime, while the meat browns, for the rice, I think in the instructions you asked how to have a big bowl. It's covered with some warm water. We're going to soak it until we use it. So lukewarm water, leave it soak. So now you should have in your pot the meat, the parsley, the spices, covered with water, and still on high heat. Once it has a boil, you cover the pot and reduce it to medium heat and let it take its time. And you see there's a question about for cauliflower. So cauliflower and eggplant, we'll do those now, we'll prepare them now, and we'll put them in much later. Or when we set up the layers. So the secret of Madura is two things, is the layering and then the flipping. And the flipping, we try to find the origin of the name Madura, because Madura in Arabic just means something flipped over. And it seems during the Ottoman Empire's presence here, a functionary of the state, a Turkish functionary, had visited Palestine, tasted this dish that he really enjoyed, but when he came back a year later, could not remember its name, so he described it to the villagers that he was visiting again. And he said, no, that dish you flipped over, and since then that name's been attributed to the dish. So now the meat is boiling. Just cover it and reduce the heat to medium heat. Just a question for people cooking. Are you all ready? Have you all your pot boiling, covered, and reduced to medium heat? I see somebody asking, do you cover the rice in the bowl with warm water yet? Yes, you soak it with warm water and leave it on the side. Ambassador, oh, you would like to speak? So please go ahead. We have a few minutes.
Okay, so I have some great news for all of you today. After 110 days, baby Sama, the picture of the little baby you were sent in your email, was able to go home. Miraculously, in the middle of a pandemic, just unheard of, we were able to find her an oxygen concentrator, and she can go home, and they're weaning her off the oxygen. So just a huge miracle and a blessing. And thanks to all of you who help keep our NICU functioning 24 hours a day. We can take care of babies like baby Sema. My other very good news is we are very close to our goal of buying an incubator for the hospital. I had asked for 10 donations of $2,500, and we got so many donations for lots of things, but for the incubator, we got 7 donations. So we need 3 more donations of $2,500 so that we can buy this incubator. So we're short $7,500. So if you haven't donated yet, or you think you might be feeling a little extra generous, if you could make a $2,500 donation, it would be a huge blessing. But if you could make any size donation toward the share of this incubator, it would also be a blessing. You can chat with Kristen in the chat room and let her know, and then she'll keep us up to date on pledges. So we know how much more we need to go. The situation in Bethlehem right now is not good. The poverty is growing. Mothers are coming to the hospital hungry. There's food insecurity. The NICU is over full. And while the pandemic is clearing up here in Bethlehem, there aren't enough vaccines and it's worsening. In April, I've gone back through all the old records I can find. We admitted the most babies to the NICU that we ever had. We had 50 babies admitted into the NICU, not all at the same time, but during the course of the month. Normally the number is in the 30s. Many more babies need our care. 23 of those babies were admitted at level 3, needing the greatest number or the highest level of care. And this sip and see today saves and improves the lives of the babies in the NICU, and it helps families in Bethlehem. I know everybody's wondering about the violence that's going on right now, and I can assure you, poor Palestine has seen its fair share. Right now, within the wall, things are tense, and everybody's on edge in Palestine, but the hospital delivered 14 babies yesterday. The doctors are all showing up. Everybody is showing up. And I know there are some very high diplomatic talks hoping to still the hostilities. But the good news is that rain or shine, hostilities or peace, Holy Family Hospital is a refuge of hope and a place of great ecumenical peace, taking care of the mothers and babies of Bethlehem. So back to you, Chef Fadi.
Thank you. Shall we prepare the eggplants or the cauliflower? If we're doing cauliflower. So if you should follow the instructions, you should have chopped the eggplants. Sadly, I'm Palestinian. I don't like to follow the instructions. I didn't do that. Just let's make sure you have them. So the eggplant should be either in circles or in length, and you should have them in a sieve or colander to release the liquid and have them salted a bit. It'll make the frying process easier.
Chef Fadi, I'm loving watching your knife skills. You make it look so easy. And
Really?
and I know you've cut probably 1 million of eggplants, especially the eggplants from Batir. Maybe just tell us a little bit about the eggplants from Batir.
But it's interesting. But he's a small village south of Bethlehem that has the oldest Roman known to humankind terracing systems. So the olive groves have been terraced with stone, and there's an aqueduct that takes water around to irrigate that land. Batir has, I would say, the best eggplants in the world. They're quite sweet. You can actually bite into them raw. But the funny thing is, again, we come back to the Ottoman Empire. The actual start of these eggplants is not Batir. There's a village next door called Wadi Fukim. And during the Ottoman Empire, the train station, there was one train station in the area there, which was in Batir. So people would, the farmers of Wadi Fukim would come to Batir with their eggplants, and people would buy them, but then, some go back to Bethlehem, Jerusalem, Haifa, whatever Palestinian city. And then when they were asked by their friend, well, where did you get these fantastic eggplants? They would say, Batir. That's how the name came to be given to that eggplant. Now people in Batir, of course, plant these eggplants. What's fantastic around Bethlehem is we have all these different villages that have a speciality of one or two projects. Much closer to Bethlehem than Batir, you have Artas, which is the biblical Hortus Conclusus, where Solomon wrote the Song of Songs. And it's in a valley very much irrigated with water, or it used to be before the settlements were constructed around it. And they're known for their lettuce. So we really have this variety. And for the ones of you that have been to Bethlehem, Bethlehem is at the edge of the olive grove landscape and the beginning of the desert. So we really benefit from both ecosystems. So that's where we get a variety of forage produce that are coming really from the edge of the desert, or coming from the Bedouin tribes that are in the desert. And then the olive grove, wine groves that are around us. Your eggplants are ready, they're salted. We're going to start frying them now. So what you need is just a frying pan and some neutral oil, so corn, maize will work. And you need to have a good inch of oil at the bottom of the pan. While we're heating the oil for the eggplants to fry, we need to prepare a plate with some kitchen paper, so the fried eggplants you will discard on them and have them release the excess oil once they're fried. So just a plate with kitchen paper. So the ones using cauliflower, your cauliflower are cut up in florets, more or less bite-sized florets, a bit bigger. And same thing, heat up the oil, and then we're going to start frying them. We need to color them and make them soft, but not salty. Your oil should be getting quite hot now. And you can find them on different batches. Don't saturate your frying pan. You need oil to stay hot. I see a question from Martha. Do we add the spices to the rice? We can do that now. If your rice has absorbed the water, you just make sure there's no more excess water in it. We can start adding the spices and the oil. If not, we can wait until the eggplants are ready. How the time. But Michelle's been kind enough to actually mix the spices for you. Hopefully next time we're cooking together, you'll be in Bethlehem. And we'll be able to go get the spices from where I buy them. We're lucky in Bethlehem to have very old artisans. The spice mill where I buy my spices has been in Bethlehem since 1936. And they import or source locally some of the best spices, whole spices, and everything is ground in the place, and that's what allows this little mix to just smell divinely. I'll show it to you. Here you see the different colors of the different spices we have. We basically have the essential spices, so the cinnamon, cardamom, allspice, cloves, nutmeg, cumin, and I've added the black pepper, but I haven't added the salt yet. So if you do have the spice mix that was sent to you by Michelle, just add the black pepper to it. Your eggplants should be starting to brown. You need to have them totally soft, but still firm. And then that's where you start removing them and put your second batch in. Patricia, has the rice been cooked? No, Patricia, the rice has not been cooked. The rice was just soaking in warm water. Now we're going to mix in the spices and the oil into the rice, and then it'll cook at the end. So basically the idea of Maruba is at the end of this different preparations, we will layer one pot with some tomatoes, the meat, the eggplants, the uncooked rice, and use the broth of the meat or the chicken on top, and then the whole thing will cook together again. So once we remove the meat or the chicken, they're not going to be totally done because they will go on cooking in that last pot. The eggplant, I put my second batch of eggplant or cauliflower. Let's mix the rice now with the spices. So again, what you need is olive oil, the rice, and the spice mix. And just generously drizzle olive oil on the rice. Put in all of the spices, including the black pepper without the salt. With a spoon, just mix in until all of the rice grains are coated with the spice and oil mix. If you have a little bit of water left in the soaking rice, it's okay. It shouldn't be totally dry, but the rice should be shiny and it will absorb quite a bit of the water.
Chef Fadi, here in the United States, some of us have gas burners like what you have, and others have electric burners, which are these electric coils. And then some people have something that's like magnetic and you have to use special pans. So I know the eggplant's going to cook at different rates depending upon the type of cooktop people have.
Exactly. If you're using an induction top with its spans, it may take a bit longer. But then the trick also is once you've removed your first eggplants, don't immediately put the other eggplants in. Leave a bit of time for the oil to reheat to get its optimal heat, and then you can put in the second batch of eggplants. While the eggplants are cooking, if you can just check the meat or the chicken, that you have enough water still on it and it's nicely bubbling and boiling. Don't let it dry out. If it is drying out, just add a bit of hot water from your kettle.
So Chef Fadi, an indication that the eggplant is ready to take out is when it's browned and a little bit collapsed, right? Then you know it's ready to take out.
When it's brown slightly, it's not totally brown, but it has a nice color and it's soft and cooked in the middle.
You can see this makes a big quantity. And Chef Fadi, I remember all during the Christmas season, you had a slogan. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was essentially cook some and share some. Cook enough to feed some more, which is what I've been seeing in Bethlehem with so many people taking care of each other.
Yes, it's in today's world, the numbers are frightening. We produce every day 30% more food than we require in terms of the planet. They're not equally divided. Of course, access to food is not equally divided, but those 30% excess are actually discarded. In Bethlehem and across the world, this year, past year for Christmas, we did a call, so a few chefs from different countries, and I launched the call from Bethlehem because one of the important values of the city of Bethlehem and the message of Christianity from Bethlehem is this generosity, but also this caring for others. And we asked people, because the pandemic has had all of us go through tough times, that the past year for the Christmas meal, if they were cooking more, to actually think of somebody who's had a rough year, somebody who's lost a loved one, somebody who's been sick themselves, somebody who's been alone, and offer them a Christmas meal. Charity is a funny concept because it all depends on how it's done. I was very much moved listening to your tribute to Noreen, because there was one thing that struck me. She did things herself. And charity is also about dignity. I traditionally have been somebody who's not supported what we call soup kitchens, because I think it deprives people of their humanity by serving them a dollop of food just because they can't have food. And I'm in awe and admiration of this fantastic Italian chef called Massimo Vettura, who started the refettorios. And the first refettorio was started in Milan with Caritas, with the church hall that was next to the Milan Fair, where actually people that are going through tough times go into the place and are served a meal like in any restaurant. So that they're served a plated meal on the table. And I think that's been a tremendous change with the pandemic, where people have realized how important it is to come to the aid of others, but to retain their dignity and their humanity. And I think that's what the Holy Family Hospital has been doing forever. As Michelle started with those nice Arabic words, ahlan wa sahlan, which means welcome. Yes, everybody is greeted by ahlan wa sahlan at the hospital, and in food, it should be the same thing. We should all be in support of each other, be conscious of food waste, be conscious of how we can use to the best. Yeah, I'll give you an example. I bought the meat today, like you have, and one of the great things in Palestine is when you buy meat, you actually buy it with the bone. So I ended up with a little bag of bones, which I will use to make a broth. And these are the little things we can do at home just to make sure we're not creating more food waste. Your eggplants should be ready. Is that the case with everybody? Martha, the rice is not cooking. It's just something. I'll show you the rice now. The rice looks like this right now. So we've added the spices, the oil, but it hasn't cooked.
Anna, can you show the full screen of the participants, and maybe we'll just have people raise their hands if their eggplants are ready, or we might need a couple more minutes on the eggplants. So we'll do a full screen, and then you raise your hand if your eggplants are ready, and keep your hands down if your eggplants are not.
I'm seeing a decent number of hands being raised.
Okay.
There are
Chef
a lot of
Fadi-
hands raised, Michelle.
Ready. Okay. Chef Fadi, maybe give us 2 minutes, and maybe I'll just say a little something while we're waiting for the just 2 minutes. So I just can't let these 2 minutes pass without saying how proud I am of the hospital staff that works around the clock. They haven't had vacations. They have covered each other's shifts. At one point, we had half the staff of the NICU out, and we had staff members from the NICU covering because their workmates were either in quarantine or sick with COVID, and everybody just stayed, which means that everybody's grandmothers and aunts and sisters and cousins were taking care of the children. So just as they say, it takes the village, well, it takes the town of Bethlehem to run Holy Family Hospital. So many people were doing the cooking for the 71% all-female staff. 71% of our staff is female, which means 29 are male. So the aunts were cooking, the grandmothers were cooking, they were looking after the babies. And their dedication is exemplary, but they can only do it because of your generosity. And your generosity lifts the morale of the staff and gives them the courage to go to work day in and day out during this pandemic. They're mostly vaccinated now, about 75%, so that's a big help. But your generosity gives them the courage, and occasionally they say, is it really true? Could somebody from Kansas really care about the mothers and babies of Bethlehem or Washington, D.C.? So your donations ensure the best care for the most vulnerable, and they make sure that no one is ever turned away for need or creed. And it is indeed the modern day manger of the good innkeeper. So I'm going to ask you all, please pray for our patients and the staff of our hospital, which serves the catchment area of 1 million people. It's such a big responsibility. And remember, our hospital, Holy Family Hospital, is the only maternity that serves that catchment area that can both deliver and save a baby born before 32 weeks. So it's a place of miracles, and you are the catalyst for those miracles. Those miracles wouldn't happen. It's like the loaves and the fishes. If the little boy didn't produce the fish or the loaves, whichever one he had, Christ wouldn't have been able to multiply. I mean, he would have been able to, but he wants us to participate. And so our participation by our generosity allows for these miracles at Holy Family Hospital. And I just want to thank all of you for caring. I'm delighted that we have reached our goal for our incubator. And I'm going to turn it back to Chef Fadi, and we're going to keep cooking. And just before we close, Catherine Abel is going to have some more of her famously eloquent remarks for everybody.
Thank you, Michelle. So now I think everybody's eggplants are ready. The rice has soaked. The tomatoes should be sliced if you haven't done it yet, like me. I've just done it. So you need 3 large tomatoes cut horizontally, and that'll be layering the pot. And then there's the chickpeas. So a cup of chickpeas. For the ones of you that have soaked them and cooked them beforehand, if not, you can use a canned chickpeas and drain them. Let's just make sure everybody has these ingredients, because now we're going to build our pot of maluba and put it to cook. If you're ready, what we start by doing is removing the meat from the broth. So with a pair of tongs, just remove the meat or the chicken from the broth, leave the parsley, the onions, and the spices in the broth, and we're going to pass it to the steam after. Exactly. Now we've removed the meat from the broth. What we need is another pot. So empty pot, and we're going to layer it now with everything that we've cooked or not. So what you do at the bottom of this pot, you put a tiny bit of olive oil, not much, but tiny sliver so that it doesn't stick. And then you layer the tomatoes. So you try and cover the whole bottom of the pot with tomatoes. And now we take the aubergine or the cauliflower and not so the ends of your eggplant, the ends with the skin goes outwards, but then the ones that are in the middle, it's okay wherever it goes. And you just do a nice layering. Some people try and make it look very nice by just having them precisely one next to each other. I prefer a bit the mess of it. So we have the tomatoes, the eggplants. Now we're going to add the chickpeas. And now the meat or the chicken. So again, layer. What you should have is a layer of each. So a layer of tomatoes, a layer of eggplants, a layer of chickpeas, and then a layer of meat. And now you take your rice and you cover your rice, you cover everything with your rice, so you end up with a layer of rice. And spread it, but don't push it down. So just lightly spread it so that it's quite harmonious and straight. If your pot arrangement is ready, can we just go around and you can show me your pots just to make sure that all the layering is done? Or I'll show you my pot, and you should have something that looks similar to it. What you should have is this now. You don't see the layers except the rice layer. You may have a bit of the meat that's spoken through, but not much. Um, Mary is asking if this could be made with seafood instead of lamb or chicken. Yes, definitely, but it's actually a different dish. In Palestinian cities on the Mediterranean, so Gaza, Jaffa, Haifa, they have a dish called sayadiyya. And sayadiyya means the fisherman's dish. It's exactly the same recipe, but it's done with seafood or fish. And the only spice addition is a bit of saffron or turmeric to give it a bit of a yellow color. But yes, it's definitely, you can use seafood, use fish instead of the lamb or the chicken. So feel free, if you want to recipe for this idea, you can contact me and I can send you one. Everybody's ready with the books. Add the broth. Ready. You remember in our list of ingredients, we use the black pepper with the other spices. What you should have left from the main ingredients of the rice is the salt. So that's where the salt comes in. You add the salt to the broth in the pot. And I'm lucky to use Dead Sea salt done by the only Palestinian producer that's still on the Dead Sea. Once you come and visit, we'll go off and meet him. I think it's the best sea salt ever. So you have the salt in the broth, give it a stir. And now what you do is you take a sieve or a colander, put it on top of so just there, on top of the rice, and you will pass your broth through it. So we don't want the parsley, the spices, and the onion. We've taken the aromats from them. So you just pour in all of that broth. It should cover the rice by ½ an inch. If your broth is not enough, you can add a bit of hot water. And if it's too much, reserve the broth and you can use it for something else.
I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. There might be 2 computers on at the same time. So maybe everybody make sure you're on mute.
So now your pot is ready. It has the liquid, so the broth, I've added a bit of water, ½ an inch on top of the rice, and we're ready to put it on the stove again. So high heat. It until it starts boiling, and you reduce the heat to medium-low.
Chef Fadi, I think I'm hearing a little bit of feedback from your mic. I don't know if you changed your audio setting.
No, I didn't. Maybe when I move around.
Oh, maybe.
Is it better like this?
Yeah, there's for some reason there's some feedback, and I can't tell if it's from. Oh, that's better. Yeah, feedback still.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's just some feedback, but that's better now.
Okay. that's the case, we can go on with the yogurt sauce. So that's quite simple. You just need 3 garlic cloves, a bit of yogurt, dried mint, a bit of salt. I like doing it a bit in advance and then leaving it in the fridge so it can really come together and infuse. So here what you need to do is chop finely the garlic, or just give it a squeeze. Garlic is very finely chopped and given a bit of a nice squeeze. You add the salt, so half a teaspoon of salt or 2 turns of milk. And then the yogurt. So here you use Greek yogurt. In Palestine, we have a local Palestinian yogurt. It's a cup and a half of yogurt. You really just mix it in well. And then sprinkle the dried mint on top. Be quite generous with the mint. This white yogurt sauce with a bit of garlic and the mint. You can leave it in the fridge now if it's ready.
So while we have our matlube cooking and
Yes.
the yogurt is in the refrigerator, maybe we can ask some questions if anyone has any questions. You can just send them to the chat, but we can answer them out loud. So if anybody has any questions, I don't know if Anna's going to be able to see them, or if anybody might just like to put it in the chat and I'll answer it out loud. Questions about the hospital, questions about Bethlehem. I will say that the good news today, in addition to us having reached our incubator goal and baby Samak going home, her bed was very quickly filled by a baby who was in desperate need of a ventilator and being in an incubator. And so the timing on that was just right. But the families are still able to get to the hospital. we're working really hard on increasing the prenatal care so that eventually it will have an effect on the NICU, because it's the only NICU in the area that can take care of these babies. And so our push is to have healthier babies so we don't have to have so many in the NICU. And a healthier mom will have a better chance at a healthier baby. So Fadi, I see a question for you, and it says, is matlube only for special occasions?
No, Aruba is not an every occasion. It's a bit the go-to dish that somebody would cook just to have a. It's not a very easy dish, but still is quite easy to do. So people usually do matluba as the dish that's made in under an hour and a half. But then at the start of the season of the Batir aubergines, of course, everybody does an aluba to celebrate these aubergines.
So, and Catherine has asked Chef Fadi about the flavors of Palestine and what are your other ventures? You have so many creative ideas.
The flavors of Palestine. For me, the flavors of Palestine are really the basic spices that we have. Za'atar and sumac. The sumac are red maize that grow quite a bit in the region of Hebron, but also in the north, in the region of Nablus. Quite acidic, and then za'atar, sadly, za'atar is mixed up all over the world into different concoctions, as in za'atar being a spice mix. The reality is za'atar is a local herb that is it's a cousin of thyme and oregano, but it's neither. And then za'atar is made to do that mix that is then used in breakfast, but za'atar leaves are really something we use a lot in our cuisine. And the third product for me that would be emblematic is something called laban jamid. So laban jamid is dried yogurt. It comes from the Bedouin communities, and it is basically a preservation method that's thousands of years old, where Bedouin nomads would salt the yogurt and sun-dry it into quite sturdy balls, and those would live along the whole year. So laban jamid is used a lot to do a traditional dish both in Jordan and Palestine called mansaf, which I think we have people from Bethlehem that have joined us. Tony is with us, Michelle, if I'm not mistaken. And the person who's joined us from Bethlehem, Tony, does the best mansaf ever, right? My other ventures. So I will share with you, but in confidence for now, because it's not yet announced. We will be announcing it in the next few weeks. We're launching the first Palestinian restaurant in London starting January, February of next year. But I will stay here because what I really believe in is resilience. And in Bethlehem, we're lucky to have an ecumenical, multi-faith culture, which for me is very close to my heart. My spice master is Christian. My foraging supplier is a Muslim woman. And that's really the beauty of being here. So we have a few new ventures happening in Bethlehem, hopefully, once we're out of the pandemic. One would be another food operation that's more with a social engagement. And we have started toying with the idea of actually creating products from Palestine to be exported abroad. If you've noticed, I've been using an olive oil bottle. To be honest, that's an olive oil that I've selected. For now, it started with a joke. There's 3 bottles in existence of this one. And I sent one off to the US to a friend of mine who's quite known in social media and the People's magazines, somebody called Muhammad Khalid. And Muhammad thought I was commercializing it, so he posted a picture of this to his 2.5 million followers. And I ended up getting orders of Palestinian olive oil. I'm not commercializing it yet, but we're really looking at this because, Michelle was saying earlier how tourism is important here. I do believe that handicrafts should not be the only thing people go away with when they come on pilgrimages. People should be able to go away with Palestinian spices and Palestinian coffee and Palestinian olive oil. And sadly, these are not things that are easily available to a normal pilgrim. When I say normal, I'm not talking about the ones that come to visit the hospital. What you have to all remember is most pilgrims who come to Bethlehem spend less than 4 hours in the city where Jesus was born. Earlier, I heard you mention Lourdes. An average stay of a pilgrim in Lourdes is 3 days. So it's quite shocking that people come to Bethlehem and very often in that very organized business are sent into the Church of the Nativity where they get to spend 6-7 minutes max in the grotto where Jesus was born. And then they're sent to a souvenir shop where they're sold handicrafts that are not always made in Bethlehem. What we actually need is people to leave that trail and walk up the old city and buy these products. So this is something I'm trying to develop now, where maybe by appointing a seal of quality on the product, we will encourage people to go out and buy more of these produce from the small shop owners in Bethlehem. So the idea would just be for me to label and select these products, but then really push the story of the people who are doing them. Because I do believe the guardians of our kitchen, the guardians of our artisans and food are the old Palestinian ladies that are still toiling the soil, are the people that are sun-drying tomatoes, are the people that are drying za'atar and making za'atar mixes. And I think they deserve their share of recognition in all of this. Hope I answered that question.
Fadi, when Holy Family Hospital Foundation takes its pilgrimages to Bethlehem. Fadi, can you just mute yourself for a minute? There. So just to say, when Holy Family Hospital takes our pilgrimages to Bethlehem, we actually stay in Bethlehem for 4 nights, maybe 5 nights. And so we do get to see some of the special places around Bethlehem and walk through the markets and really not only see the hospital, but support the economy of Bethlehem and to go to a lot of the restaurants. And I promise you the next pilgrimage we take, if we can fit everybody in Chef Fadi's restaurant, and if Chef Fadi will invite us, we will definitely have a beautiful dinner in Chef Fadi's restaurant, and he's going to surprise us with some beautiful culinary delights. Fadi, you can put your microphone back on.
Michelle, when I sometimes bump into you in the old city of Bethlehem, with your immigrants. Actually, that's what everybody should be doing, and I think a lot of the organized pilgrimages, because of the costs involved, because of the realities they also don't really want to see, don't take the time to actually let people travel across the city. Because where I am right now, where we're cooking, I'm literally 500 meters away from the Church of the Nativity. And I'm extremely proud as a Bethlehemite that Jesus was born here. But what we need to remind the world is not only was he born here, but he was one of us. And walking around Bethlehem, feeling the fear, for me is as important as a part of visiting the church of nativity.
I did turn that off. I could live with that.
Yep. If everybody could just make sure that they're muted. I know we've got some issues with some feedback. But I'm going to mute myself now, and then Fadi's going to tell us a little bit more about the Matlube, and then Catherine will give us the remarks.
Your Matlube should be simmering, the water should be reducing, and we have another 10-15 minutes before it's done. Just make sure the water hasn't dried out. If I may use this occasion, because I just saw a very familiar face, Dr. Harry is there. So good evening, Dr. Harry. I hear Mary Jo's hard at work cooking Matluba while you're watching us. Enjoy your Matluba, and we miss you in Bethlehem.
We can't wait to come back.
It'll be a pleasure. So you have 10 minutes. Just leave your Matluba's cooking, and we shall inform you.
So I have a story to tell you of a baby. Fadi, could you please mute your microphone? Thank you. So I have a story to tell you of a baby named Baby Riham, who was born at 26 weeks gestation. That's pretty small. And he weighed 900 grams, just under 2 pounds. And he was born at the government hospital, and the government hospital pled with Holy Family Hospital to admit this baby, and we were full. But they didn't have the means to take care of this child's extreme prematurity. We were full, but we did have a free ventilator. And so the NICU decided to admit this baby. They prepared what's called the giraffe incubator, which can warm the babies and create the proper humidity and do so much for the babies without having to be touched. When the baby came, he was very hypothermic. He was cold. He was only 90 degrees. And so they were able to slowly warm him. They were able to warm the blood in a different incubator and give him a transfusion. And they were able to put in some umbilical lines and to feed him through his veins because he was having a brain bleeding because of the small size that he was. But because he got this care within the first 2 hours of his life, because the government hospital was so close and has such a good relationship, they were able to call us. And the baby is doing a little better each day. It was a really rough start. The family is just so grateful, and the government hospital is so grateful that we were able to accommodate this baby, even though we had sort of a full census. But just like Fadi was saying, at Christmas, the Palestinians will share their matlube, they'll share their rolled up grape leaves, and not just at Christmas. As I spoke at another time, telling you about how some of the nurses who are widows, they're cooking when their shifts are over and sharing it with people in their building. Our hospital has an oxygen extraction machine, and we normally run it for 8 hours a day, and we fill big canisters. Now we're running it all the time, and we're sharing oxygen with nearby COVID centers. We're sharing training with the Caritas Baby Hospital, and that we're sending one of our very best neonatologists to spend a day a week over there training them. And we're taking 2 of their nurses into our hospital each week to spend time in the NICU and do intensive training, so that the very tiny and lower level NICU at Caritas Baby Hospital can raise up its level and be able to take care of these babies of Bethlehem, so that we can continue to say there's always room at our inn. And so just as the Palestinian people are so generous with their hospitality, welcoming the stranger, offering a coffee or a tea to somebody they've never ever met, opening their homes and their tables for some of the finest food in the world, our hospital is doing the same thing. It is sharing expertise. It is sharing extra supplies as prudent, and it is sharing oxygen, which of course is one of the most important things in the treatment of COVID. So I just feel so proud to play a very small role, and Dr. Johnson and Dr. Quinn are on the medical committee and help with some of these decisions, but it's all because of your generosity that we can save lives and create hope. Fadi said he's 500 meters from the birthplace of Christ, and our hospital is 1,500 steps from the birthplace of Christ. So what you could do is you could see the hospital and take about 1,000 steps and go in and have a nice meal at Fauda with Fadi, with Chef Fadi, and then you could go to the Church of the Nativity or vice versa. I'm going to pass it over to Chef Fadi, and we're going to see what he has for us.
Chef Fadi, could you please unmute yourself on your computer screen? Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. So your maluba should be starting to get ready. If you can check the water level in your pot, and take a grain of rice from the top and just taste it to make sure it's cooked. I think they do need, depending on the type of stove you're using, they do need another 5 to 7 minutes. Check the level of water. You just tilt your pot a bit and see if there is any water that's still coming by your way. If it's dry but the rice is not cooked, just lower the heat to very low heat and keep it for another few minutes. For the ones cooking, how are your malubas doing? Can you just have around with the one just to know what's happening? is ready, if yours are ready, just turn off the heat. And now you need to keep it for a minute, just to keep that steaming, to finish cooking the rice, 1 or 2 minutes. And then we'll flip the maqluba onto that big plate. Some of you are done. So now for the ones that are ready, you just take a tray or a plate that's a bit bigger than your pot, put it on top, and you need some kitchen gloves or cloths to flip it over. So what you do now is just go flip it over and leave the pot on top. If you think your maqluba is stuck, so the tomatoes have stick to the bottom, it's too dry, just leave it so it has time to nicely go down. Usually we make sure it's detached. Use a cloth when you do it. I can do this. Just do this in the bottom. It's quite hot, but it will detach it. And then, here we go. So what you should have is the rice, the tomatoes, the aubergines, the chickpeas, the meat, and everything is quite soft and cooked.
Is anybody willing to try a flip?
Show us a flip. I can see Mary Jo going, yes.
Patricia Abel looks like she's about to flip.
Oh, there's a flip there. Michelle, why aren't you flipping yours?
Mine's still a little wet, Fadi, so I'm just a little nervous to flip it quite yet. I'm going to check again to see if I can do the. It's a lot of pressure to do the flip.
Quite a few people busy in their kitchens. I see some attempting flips away from the cameras. What's happening with your maqlubas?
Move your computer just so we can see it if you've flipped.
Ellen, yes, if you're defeated, don't flip it, serve it off, but flipping it gives it that little bit of a nice layering. You see that some of you are already tasting. Is it good for the ones that are tasting it? Cool. If you've noticed, Michelle's gone silent. I'm quite worried about her flipped Aruba. We can't see her on the camera. Michelle, what happened to the Aruba?
Are you ready? It's a mess, but it's gonna taste great. Can you see it? Can you see it? There you go. It's flipped, but it was sort of a mess.
John Morgan, there's quite a few that have fantastic Arubas that actually look nicer than mine. Abigail, I see you've actually finished tasting the Aruba. You have a smile, so the spice is the first time they're right. They can get to taste money now. Don't forget your yogurt, the garlic. Catherine, yes, you can reheat it. Actually, the great thing with for Catherine's questions, can it be reheated? The great thing with things like menudo is you can actually use them as a leftover the second day. You can reheat them, and the flavors will just go on mixing and being, you know, more intense. The only thing is, don't put it in a fridge when it's hot like this. Just keep it outside until it's room temperature, and then put it in your fridge, and it'll be good for another 2 days. Michelle, we're not hearing you. We can see you.
Michelle, you're muted.
Sorry. So in the essence of time, I'm going to turn the mic over to Catherine Abel for our closing remarks. And thank you everybody for coming. And Catherine, thank you so much. Anna and Kristen, thank you for providing all of the help. And Chef Fadi, a million thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing for Bethlehem.
I just want to say that my kitchen smells wonderful. I have this beautiful visual feast, and now my stomach is growling, and I just can't wait to share all of this special treat with my family. I think I probably speak for everyone else who cooked, and for everyone who didn't cook, I hope we've inspired you to try it yourselves. Chef Fadi, I'd like to thank you very, very much for your hospitality, for your heartfelt comments, and for sharing your culinary secrets with us. This has been a very entertaining and a very tasty cooking adventure, and we will keep you and everyone in Bethlehem in our prayers that life will get easier for you and come back to normal soon. I also want to thank Michelle for all you do for the hospital and for your wonderful comments about the extraordinary efforts at Holy Family Hospital. Truly heroic things are taking place there. Thanks to the St. Anne's Committee for all your help to make this event a great success, to Anna and to Kristen on our staff who facilitated this event so beautifully. And especially I want to thank everybody on the Zoom call for your very, very generous response and your support for our neediest babies. On behalf of the moms and the hospital and the foundation, Alf Shugran, a thanks 1,000 times. We've come together today to honor a special lady, to learn and to cook. And now in the tradition of Palestinian hospitality, I say, may these spices perfume your home. May those you love gather at your table. May this food you prepared bring joy to all who partake. And until we meet again, may the child Jesus and his mother keep you and bless you with all good, always. Thank you very much for attending. Thanks for your patience and all your great cooking. I wish we could try everybody's. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.